How's it going, guys? On this edition of B-Ray's Ultimate Man Cave, going to have a little bit to cover. This past weekend, I just saw the new DC's The Flash. Overall, I'm very pleased with the movie. I came out of the theater very satisfied. So right from the get-go, in the first few moments of the film, we see, Barry Allen doing his day-to-day, routine. I believe he was at the coffee shop Jitters. That was how it was in the show. I'm not sure. It didn't mention it in the movie specifically, but, we can likely assume it was Jitters. It starts off right into, the whole comedy aspect. With this film, they kind of, I thought it was a good balance between the comedy aspect and then the action, and the film was kind of shot weird. There was negative thoughts on the CGI of the film, which there's been articles from the director who mentioned that the CGI was done on purpose because you're seeing things from the view of the Flash. You're looking at things from Barry's perspective, which I thought was an interesting approach and an interesting take. That's part of one of the reasons, why I enjoyed the movie so much, because I felt like they didn't play it safe. They took risks, they took a chance, and, they try to do, more of their own thing with this take on the Flash. For the first few moments of the film, Barry's called off into Gotham City, and, we get a name drop of the Falcone family. So one of the Falcones in the film has, hijacked a highly toxic bioweapon. And throughout the sequence, you have Flash working to save a Gotham General, a hospital, and you have Batfleck, Ben Affleck's version of Batman, going on the high-speed chase. Really cool, remnants of The Dark Knight with Batman in the Batpod, but Batman and the Bat-Cycle, very awesome sequence. I mentioned it in a written post about a review of the movie, how Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton both, respectively, really enjoyed their portrayals and their take on the Batman characters in this film. I felt like with the short period that Ben Affleck was in the movie, he knocked it out of the park. Really good, really, really, really cool. And, Ben Affleck, not the best Batman, but definitely a good Bruce Wayne, versus as Christian Bale. Christian Bale has so far been my top live-action Batman, but I didn't feel like Christian Bale made a great Bruce Wayne. Michael Keaton will always be the tops. I felt like he did both a good Bruce Wayne and a good Batman, and the 1989 Batman film is the film that started my whole Batman fandom. That was the film that came out. I was a toddler, and my mom, she got me one of my first action figures that I can remember at that young age, and that was the 1989 Batman with the pull rope on the belt, and I was instantly into it, man. I was all about Batman during that time. So with this movie, the whole nostalgia and the whole feels came back. The moment Barry travels back in time, and he's on this mission to save his mother. He needs to change one thing, if he can just change something without really interfering, so he thought, and there goes how the plot goes. And the moment, he interacts with his younger version of himself, complete laughs. Like, the comedy, I felt there was a good balance of comedy and drama in this film. Ezra Miller, I don't have an opinion really either way on the other side of him as an actor or, you know, them as a person. You know, I really went into this movie, you know, not even caring that it was a Flash movie. You know, I know it's the title role, a title character. I mainly went, you know, the selling point for me was Michael Keaton being back as Batman on the big screen. Michael Keaton, you know, being Batman again. And because even though, you know, I was just 3 years old by the time the 1989 Batman film was coming out, and I don't believe I, you know, was taken to the theater to see it. So to get this experience, to be at the theater and watch Michael Keaton as Batman on the big screen, that was awesome. Phenomenal performance. You know, if Michael Keaton had doubts or had, you know, frustrations during, you know, shooting Batman Returns, he definitely redeemed himself with this movie. I mean, granted, this is definitely the Flash movie. It's not the Batman 3 like, you know, some people might have hoped or whatever. I mean, symbolically, you can kind of, I can see where people can kind of sway into that, but this is just, you know, Michael Keaton as Batman. He's in a big chunk of the movie, one of the main characters, and that's awesome. Like, we got just the right amount of Michael Keaton that we needed, just the right amount, you know, for the nostalgia feels. Like, the moment they had the idea of trying to look up, you know, for the rest of the Justice League members, you know, Barry's back at the younger Barry's place, and he's searching, you know, on the computer, trying to figure out where the other Justice League members is, and he realizes that he interfered with time and interfered the course of how things are so much that most of the Justice League at this time doesn't even exist or haven't even, you know, been born yet. So really, really interesting. Like, I know they took a few, you know, story points from Flashpoint. This is one of the issues I definitely had to pick up when I, you know, realized they were doing the movie. You know, this was one of the recommend reads. This is the first print. I'm probably going to end up looking to see if I can get either the graphic novel or trade paperback. Because this would be a really, really good story, or, you know, comic to look up if you're going into the Flash and don't really know too much about the background or, you know, how the story would be. Like, I mean, they took some elements from Flashpoint, but, you know, they switched things around for the story to be able to work for the movie. Prior to the TV show, I really didn't know much about the Flash. I wouldn't have considered myself to be a huge Flash fan, let alone a DC fan. My most favorite superhero and fictional character of all time is always going to be Batman. It's Batman. So I can talk all day and, you know, mention everything Batman universe, but when it comes to the other DC characters, I really am not that knowledgeable. I'm a lot more knowledgeable about Marvel characters, if you believe it or not. Marvel has put out a lot of media, especially dominating the Saturday morning cartoons front. I mean, I remember, you know, the reruns of a lot of the classic Marvel cartoons, Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends, different shows like that. So I can talk about Marvel all day, Marvel comics, you know, more than I can really fill in and talk about DC comics. But if it has to do with Batman, I'm there. There's this one time during one of the Batman Day celebrations, I went to a local comic book shop, and they had hosted a Batman trivia night. And, you know, there was people who were splitting the teams. You know, I couldn't have anyone, you know, go with me. You know, no one was available at the time. They were all busy. So I ended up going to, you know, the Batman wedding celebration. It was when Batman and Catwoman, you know, issue number 50. There was a big wedding issue, and they were doing a celebration day about it, and they hosted Batman trivia, and I was on a team by myself. I won Batman trivia by myself, and it was the coolest thing ever, and it felt like a badge of honor that, you know, out of these teams and out of this group of people that were there, I single-handedly bested them with my Batman knowledge. So really cool. So what I was getting at about the whole, understanding and knowing things about the Flash, prior to the Flash TV show on CW, on the Arrowverse, I really did not know much about the Flash. I kind of got some of his origin story, but I didn't know how it all connected and how it went on about. So most of my knowledge is based off of, the Flash TV show, which sadly it ended, and I kind of like how it kind of came about that the show ended just, weeks before the release of this movie, kind of giving us, some closure on the show end, but representing, the ending of the DCU and, taking steps towards the DCU. But as far as comic goes, I never picked up a Flash comic prior. One of the series that caught my attention at the time is the comic book series Flash Rebirth. And I only have issue 1, but at some point in time I had the whole series. I ended up selling it, of course, but I managed to get at least this issue back. And this was probably my, comic book introduction to the Flash. And I enjoyed it. I felt it was a good, compelling story. I love the artwork. So this is also another trade paperback that I'll probably look up and probably pick up at some time during some point. But yeah. So there was a lot of, interesting things about this movie, a lot of new ideas that I wasn't aware of. Like I said, once they got to the point where, after Barry was doing a search for the Justice League, and I knew they were leading into finding Bruce. But if you notice the trailers, you know that, this Bruce is not going to be the Bruce Wayne that Barry thinks it is. It's not going to be Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne, but it's going to be Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne. So the moment they pulled up to the gates of the old Wayne mansion, I was there. I was like, man, this is like we're stepping back into 1989. But, years later, aged, old, but you still recognize the gate. You still recognize the silhouette of the building. It was pure nostalgia. They went into the room. I remember the classic room where they have it's like the ballroom, and then they have the suits of armor where Vic Vale and Knox walk through. The two Barrys went through that same corridor in that same area, and I was like, oh man, it is just as if we haven't left. This is so cool. That we got a little bit more view of a scenery of the Wayne Mansion than I think we've had in previous other movies, which is cool. There was, so it brought me back to the 1989 movie. It brought me back to Batman Returns, and I'm like, man, anticipation, where's Bruce? And we get a little bit of a X-Men First Class moment with a kitchen scene, but in this kitchen scene, old man, Bruce Wayne is kicking the Flash, the older Barry's butt, while the younger Flash is just doing the whole Spider-Man recently acquired my powers dodging effect. It was so hilarious, and I was like, man, this old Bruce Wayne, you can't even count him out. He's Batman for a reason. Even, in that old age, he's still kicking guys' butt and just owning everybody, like with pots and pans and things like that. Great scene, great sequence. I had a great time with it. But, finally, we even get a tidbit when, Bruce Wayne's making spaghetti. And he lets his genius show out. Like, I almost lightly forgot that, besides Batman having great combat skills, he's knowledgeable. He has genius intellect. He broke down the whole thing with what was going on with the situation with them traveling through time, and how, the concept of time and different branches of time, he compared it to a bowl of spaghetti. I was like, wow. It was like, Bruce was not fazed by the fact there's two of the same person sitting in front of him. Like, he got the gist of the situation right away. And, as, expected, he was reluctant to help Barry, defeat, go against the odds of General Zod, because by this time General Zod has made an appearance, so you get all these indications that Barry screwed up time. I mean, the story, the pacing, it just all blended together so well. Like, it worked so well. I enjoyed the cameos, I enjoy the story, and then, eventually getting to the point seeing Michael Keaton as Batman in action. It was almost like he was, right there. Like, there was like no indication that, there was this huge gap. It was almost like, prime Batman in a way. I mean, and the use of gadgets, they let him use his genius mind, and he had all these different gadgets. Like, when they were showcasing like Michael Keaton back in the bat suit, I don't think they missed a step. They were like, we're not going to waste this. We're going to definitely be thorough, and we're going to, present Batman as Batman. And I mean, he nailed it. Like, it was just really cool. And Supergirl, I know at first it was kind of tough and it was hard. It's not the traditional blonde-haired Supergirl, but kudos, much respect. I thought she did a phenomenal job, and she is definitely a cutie. She is hot. So I was all about the Supergirl, and it was a little bit of a darker, brooding Supergirl, so she wasn't all smiley and bubbly as I've seen other Supergirls being. So, I mean, I guess I'm hung up on the CW Supergirl show, because there was moments where Kara was, bubbly, kind of, had more of a brighter personality. But this one, I mean, I guess if you've been locked up in a black site for as long as she have, I don't know, I didn't indicate how long she was there, but for a while, I guess you would kind of have a dark perspective on the planet Earth and humans. But so she played that up really well. If that was the intention, it was well done. I mean, all around, the acting was good, the performance was well done. I felt the story pacing was definitely on point. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I'm not going to say it was overall the best DC Comics movie, but it's one of their better ones. It's definitely up there. DC is known to have a lot of misses or a lot of failed attempts on a lot of their movies. The Arrowverse was just phenomenal. Like, a lot of people wish that they can take some of the concepts and things that they've done with the Arrowverse and the CW TV shows and translate a lot of that to film. I mean, people were mad and upset with how DC is separating TV shows from their movies, because some of the things, may work for television, but they may not work necessarily for movies. And I get that. And I mean, it's hard not, witnessing Grant Gustin as the Flash. I so would have loved him being the Flash in films, just like I would have loved Steven being, the Arrow for a lot of these films. But, unfortunately, we're probably not going to get that, except for maybe a fun little cameo. I mean, that was probably one of the other things that, the movie's not a 10 out of 10 for me. And I'm being biased, of course, but there's, out of the Batmans that could have shown up, there was, at least two that didn't really make an appearance. They did a little fun cameos here and there and CGI cameos of certain characters. But what they did was they introduced freaking George Clooney by the end of the movie, and I was like, didn't really know how to feel about it at first. I kind of felt like it was a punch in the gut, because despite your feelings on Batman or Robin, to a lot of us Batman fans, that has got to be the worst Batman film in the Batman mythology. Like, man, it was panned all around, but as a kid during that time, okay, so the movie was slightly entertaining, but as I got older, the movie just does not age well. I mean, the puns, I mean, it's laughable. But I think someone in an interview or a documentary about the Batman films, I have the Batman anthology collection, I think they said it best when they talked about how the Batman movies of the 90s, from the Tim Burton series to the Joel Schumacher films, they represented the different eras of Batman, even in the comic books, like how the Tim Burton Batman just started out with the 1940s Batman of the dark origins, the darker brooding, I'm gonna kick your butt Batman. Whereas, the middle Batman Forever, Joel Schumacher film, represented the Batman maybe of the 80s that was kind of more poppy and kind of out there. And then you got the Batman and Robin film, which was representing like kind of the 1960s feel or vibe, where things were campy and Batman was facing off against these dopey creatures and dopey adversaries and things like that. So I kind of get that range, but George Clooney, no disrespect, I know he's had a stellar career, he's been in some good roles and stuff, but man, Batman and Robin was just a mess. And I mean, I own the film, but it's one of the less Batman live action things that I watch, like less than anything live action that's been produced about Batman. So with seeing him, I was like, I would have rather seen Val Kilmer, but I don't know the full story of why he didn't show up in the film. There was hints that Christian Bale might have been approached, but overall, like, I enjoy the film. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Great movie, one of DC Comics' best. So people have been saying that this is the end of the DCEU, the DC Expanded Universe. When technically, they also said that definitively the next Aquaman movie would be the end of the DCU. Right now, helmed by James Gunn, we're going to be seeing hopefully new, better DC content as far as film goes as James Gunn takes over. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing more Batman in films. Batman has been DC's bread and butter. You could say Superman too, but when you look at DC roster of movies, it's always been centered around two giants, Batman and Superman. Superman of the 70s, into the 80s, and then Batman. And then when it got to the Schumacher films, it kind of fell off, but then Christopher Nolan revived it back again, and then Batman ended up at the top of the superhero movie ladder once again. That was before Marvel and the whole Avengers movie stepped up. So we see this going on. So I hope DC finds more success with other characters and we see more newer things, because don't get me wrong, I love Batman. Like I said, Batman is my favorite top fictional character of all time, but I'm aware that DC has this full roster of amazing characters, just like Marvel has this huge roster of amazing characters, and it would be awesome just kind of to see better content, or hopefully see better movies come out. But again, I hope you guys take time and enjoy this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Please like and subscribe. And also, I almost forgot, I meant to do this at the beginning of the video, but I'll go ahead and start the introduction now, because here at the Man Cave, we love our dragons, and I wanted to, not end this video without giving a salute or having a hello from Drew the Dragon. So this is Drew the Dragon, the Man Cave mascot. And with that, guys, I appreciate you. Stay blessed. Have a great day. Batman out.